And that's where we begin. EFF leader Julius Malema says political freedom without economic freedom is meaningless. He was launching the party's election manifesto at the Moses Mabhida Stadium a short while ago. While addressing the Red Berets rally, Malema launched a scathing attack on what he says is the democracy we've experienced since the dawn of democracy in 1994. He highlighted the lack of basic services coupled with high crime levels and persistent power cuts. He's also called for expropriation of land, creation of jobs, and for rolling blackouts to be a thing of the past.
Our land and jobs now, stop load shedding. 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 The theme and the clarion call for election 2024 is as outlined. The emphasis on land derives from the fact that 30 years down the line, 80% of the land is in the hands of the whites. Jobs is informed by the fact that joblessness in South Africa today sits at more than 15 million people who are capable to work. And our emphasis on now is because our suffering is happening now. We don't have jobs now. We don't have clinics now. We are going to bed hungry now. That's why we must solve all those things now. Fighters, more fundamentally, the emphasis on now is because we cannot postpone the true liberation from apartheid, from economic apartheid. We are not part of the 1994 elite pact. We are not part of CODESA. We don't owe the Boers anything. We never went to CODESA with the Boers. We are a new generation with our own challenges. And therefore, when we say now, we must not apologize because we never promised white people that we'll never take the land. Comrades, we say load shedding must stop because we are in darkness now. Our people don't have electricity. Load shedding has killed a lot of businesses. And as a result, because businesses are gone, a lot of our people have lost jobs. Load shedding has destroyed education. We thought Ramaphosa killed people only in Marikana, but through load shedding, Ramaphosa is continuing to kill our people in South Africa. And that's why we must vote to stop load shedding.
Malema also committed to ending load shedding within 6 months of entering government. He says EFF plans to maximize the use of coal to end rolling blackouts and create jobs.
The EFF is going to create 9 million jobs through stopping load shedding, because we believe that through industrialization we can create jobs, but we cannot industrialize if we still have load shedding. Therefore, the government of the EFF is committing to end load shedding within 6 months in government, because we know it is possible and it is practically possible. We have assembled a group of engineers who are waiting for EFF to take over. They will be integrated in ESCOM to make sure that we provide reliable electricity to our people. Comrades, we are going to reactivate all coal-fired power stations and operating all of them to the full capacity. We are going to introduce more than 6,000 megawatts nuclear energy, activation of gas to power electricity solution, a non-negotiable maintenance plan for all coal-fired power stations. This will ensure that we secure electricity generation and supply for the next 20 years without load shedding and we are going to do so unapologetically using our coal maximally. We are not going to destroy coal mining. We are not opposed to other alternatives. Those alternatives will come and join coal. Coal is our primary source, and we will not destroy it, because destroying coal is destroying jobs.
Let's get some analysis now and speak to Professor Sethulego Matebesi, a political analyst. Prof, thank you so much for your time. Before we even get into some of what was said, let's just start briefly with your overall impressions.
Yeah, well, quite impressive if you look at it, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, less than 2% in the past, 2014, and almost more over 14%, but also in terms of the attendance. Many have.
Prof. Matebesi, I'm going to ask if the team can just try to resolve this sound issue, because you come and you go. We can make out what you're saying in some parts, but not in others, as we're trying then to really just pick apart this, this speech, in fact, by EFF leader Julius Malema, saying that the theme for 2024 is our land and jobs now, stop load shedding, and saying that load shedding is part of the big focus. There's grants as well. There's also the focus on coal-fired power stations. And you think about the fact that right now, South Africa is at stage 6 of rolling blackout. So we were getting your overall impressions. I mean, the EFF, through its leader, revealing that their theme for 2024 is our land and jobs now, stop load shedding. Let's then pick it up from where you were telling us your impressions on the speech.
Yes, no, thanks, Bongi. We're sorry to the viewers for that. But one thing that really impressed me is the bold statement that have been made by the EFF before this launch, to say they will definitely follow up Moses Mabhida, and yet again they have indicated that they can draw masses whenever they command their masses, and also an indication by their leader to say that stadium has been filled by people from KZN, because KZN will be a political hotbed in the forthcoming elections, and I think that perhaps the EFF can conclude that they had a resounding successful election manifesto launch.
And Prof, let's just keep trying and see if your line holds there. The KZN, of course, is a battleground, but I'm listening to what you're saying. So would you say then that, because he said that at the beginning, he broke new ground. They were able to come into Moses Mabhida Stadium in what he calls a difficult province. And he says he is quite happy by what he's seeing in front of him. And I suppose, listening to you, you agree.
Yes, most definitely, I agree. Because you should also understand a party which is 11 years old, with all the challenges. I don't know where the EFF is getting all its funds. And one thing that the South African electoral citizens should realize, that it takes a lot to organize any event of this magnitude. Just to depend, but yes, that one we cannot verify whether that stadium has only been filled by people. Obviously, there will have been some members that come from other provinces, but fact of the matter is that they've managed to draw such numbers in a province where in the past we knew that in terms of political intimidation and sometimes also clandestine operations to try and disrupt political events of this magnitude. I think on another layer, it is actually good for our democracy. It has nothing to do with the EFF, but it also speaks to how far we have come as a country in terms of political tolerance, tolerating the opposition and others that perhaps does not speak your language or share the same political ideology.
All right.
And I think this is extremely good for consolidating our democracy.
And Prof, let's get into some of what he says. I mean, you think about the fact that he talks about the doubling of the social grants, but a number of the promises that we heard today, we are still going to go through that entire manifesto, of course, thick, just over 240 pages. But these are promises we also heard in 2019. And when you think about the doubling, for example, of social grants, you think about, quite a number of service delivery issues that he is talking about as well. The issue of land, the redistribution, that is. The detail is very thin, though, on the how. And I wonder if we should be concerned because there's a lot of promises that are being made, but the how is often what is missing in these manifestos.
Yeah, and sometimes at certain moments, also a bit of confusion because he mentioned that they want to get rid of the tender system. And yet again, at a later stage, you want the procurement, public sector procurement, to at least provide for 40% of youth involvement. So one asks ourselves, how is that going to happen? And first of all, I think the EFF have acknowledged that we've got a bleeding economy. And the question is, how long are they going to stabilize our economy to be able to provide these huge increases in terms of social grants, free education and all that. And that is where the problem comes in. How are you going to achieve or implement or even start to implement some of these priorities that the EFF have now, promised South Africans? And how are you going to sustain that? I think once the citizens of this country are taken into confidence about that, I think that will give us a clearer picture of how capable the EFF is in terms of dealing with this particular matter. For now, it is yet once again promises upon promises, but whether they are implementable and how long it's going to take to implement them, that is a question for another day.
And it's going to be an interesting one, Prof. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, he even says that we are going to implement all that we are saying, but one then wonders, we've seen manifestos come and go. We've seen the promises being made, but very little when it comes to sometimes the delivery. But Prof, thank you so much there. And we were able to make out a lot of what you were saying there. That is Professor Sethulego Matebesi, a political analyst. And you think about, the EFF talking about the issues of racism, and this is something that was also featured quite prominently in their 2019 manifesto. At the same time, they talk about the clinics that must operate for 24 hours. And this has been something that they have been saying ever since that very launch in Marikana as well. But there's a lot, as we say, that is still missing on the how part. You think about NSFAS and the fact that you want students to then not be paying back the loans, the costing of these entire plans and the implementation thereof. How does it all unfold? Because essentially, South Africans have been flooded with promises, but very little when it comes to the how part. But these are manifestos that we are going to be looking at, and we are going to be picking them apart for you and also making sense of what we are seeing unfolding before our eyes.